This is Data Characteristics Part 2. We're going to continue here with integrity. So integrity simply means that the data has not been altered or manipulated in some way. I can count on it being the same as when it was sent. This also, by the way, sometimes something called non-repudiation is incorporated or included in this concept of integrity. Non-repudiation is that concept that I can prove that you are the one that sent a particular document, for example. You can't deny it. Ownership is who's responsible for this data. Now, I am going to make a caveat here from what the book says about ownership. Our textbook talks about ownership being some form of management that is in charge of that data. That all depends on the system being used. Now, there are various kinds of what we call access control systems. For example, DAC, or discretionary access control. In discretionary access control, such as we have in Microsoft Windows, for example, really the owner of the data is the one that creates that data, not management. In something like Mac or mandatory access control, then the corporate might be the one that actually owns that data, not the individual. In other words, who has the authority to give access to that data? And so it all depends on the system. So I disagree with our book a little bit about this ownership thing. Possession, in other words, the state of ownership or control of that particular data. And privacy, the expectation that entities who are affected by the possession of the data. So in this case, for example, credit card information, I, as a person who makes a purchase online, expect privacy of my information. And even though a company is handling it without my knowledge in some way, moving it from one system to another, or allowing certain people within the organization to see that information, I have an expectation of privacy because I am a stakeholder in what happens with that data. Users are just another word for agents, basically. You have users and groups. So a user is an individual. A group is a group of users. However, users can also be agents, and groups can also be agents. That is to say, they are not necessarily people. The system itself or a certain software program may be a user as well. Utility is the usefulness of data. Now, this is a really, really important point. Usefulness of data helps us determine what controls we need to put into place. So, for example, if there are just, let's see what I give here, email from a corporate manager praising a department for a job well done, that may not have high utility. It may not be all that useful. However, credit card numbers of customers has a very high utility. And so I don't really need to worry about protecting that email from that manager saying, hey, you all did a good job. But I do need to worry about protection of credit card numbers of my customers. And so that utility becomes part of the formula for what we protect and what we don't protect. How important is that information? If we tried to protect all information equally, we would really overwhelm our system. And so that's why this utility aspect is a very important concept. We do use it in those functions where we decide how we're going to protect our data. As I said earlier, many more could be included. I've given you a pretty good little overview of some of the important terms. So next we're going to take on some threat and attack types.